So once again, good evening and a very warm welcome to the very first PIM monthly montage that is being held for this year. I'm Thanadu Amarasekara, your host as always, and senior lecturer for managerial finance, digital transformation, and communication skills here at the Postgraduate Institute of Management. And as always, the intention of the PIM monthly montage is to make sure that we engage in conversation with some of the brilliant minds of Sri Lanka and to get their insight, to understand their line of thinking, and hopefully the PIM learning partners and also the wider business community will be able to benefit from that level of thinking and benefit from that perspective and integrate those for their business activities and decision making as well. Today, we have joining us someone whom we can recognize as an absolutely extraordinary gentleman. He's someone who is specializing in new businesses, startups, and technology. He is also the founder and CEO of PIM, which is easily the leading ride-hailing app in Sri Lanka. He has also been the Chief Technology Officer and a member of the founding management team of Digital Commerce Lanka, better known for their platform Wow.lk. And he has also played significant roles in multiple different organizations, including Microsoft. And this wonderful individual is someone who has even been invited by the Prime Minister of India to address the startups in India in providing them motivation and inspiration as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today's special guest on PIM Monthly Montage, someone whom I take the great pleasure of introducing as a very good friend of mine too, who is none other than Mr. Jeffrey Zulfar, or we can call him Mr. Pick-Me. So Zulfar, welcome to PIM Monthly Montage. Absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Tarindu. I hope you can hear me well.
He can hear you loud and clear. So today, actually, our theme for today, we thought this year we are going to listen more to the industry and take up topics that is of vital importance to the industry itself. Now, Zulfar and I, in our multiple different conversations that we have actually had, one thing he has discussed with me is the rising role of intrapreneurs. In other words, how organizations need individuals in their organization, but those who can think and act like an entrepreneur within the organization. So without further delay, I think this is a very enticing and interesting topic. And of course, today we were supposed to have Mr. Asanka Ranasinghe joining us, but unfortunately, he is unable to join us, but he definitely sends his best wishes for this event today. Zulfar, without further delay, let's dive into the question that really matters. In your view, you're a CEO. How do you define an intrapreneur or a product owner, as you would call it, and what do you expect from them? Let's start with that opening.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Tarindu. So I think if I may talk about this topic, right? I think this is an area that is now fast growing. And I sort of want to sort of give you some substance before I sort of get into answering that question. And I mean, feel free to sort of stop me if you need any, if you have any questions, amongst the audience, feel free to just stop me and just ask me any questions. But let me just give you a sort of a start to my career, right? And then you'll sort of get an idea of where I'm coming from, right? So, and essentially industries around this country and then obviously around the world, right? So, I think when I started my career, right, obviously, starting this entrepreneurship journey, I bounced with a good friend, obviously, who was working for a large organization. I suppose this is a very small. It's a stream on Facebook. No, I better not quote people now. Right. So I obviously a large organization that's in the IT outsourcing sector. And, I was, sort of trying to tell him what I was trying to do. And he sort of told me, hey, Zulfar, you shouldn't be developing products, right? You should get into the service sector. they're asking why, right? He said, well, you know, products are difficult to do, right? Products are difficult to build, but service sectors are easy to do, right? So anyway, I obviously sort of took that advice. I mean, sort of processed that advice and sort of dwelled over it over time. But I think essentially, I mean, you can understand that, you know, you look around many industries, right, in this country. You look at the tea industry, you know, the garment industry. We've just become an outsourced outfit, right? You know, I mean, everyone talks about the raw tea that we've been selling over the past 50 years, never branding them, and obviously not getting the value add, right? We see that happen in the gem industry, really not having much brands in place so that we can value add and be able to sell it to the final customer. Right? I think that's what it is, and I think that's also prevalent in technology today, right? We have I think hundreds of thousands of people working on in the outsource sector, right? Obviously, a lot of intellectual property going in and working for companies overseas, right? And the sad news is that, you know, obviously we are like a body shop, right? We sit down, we write code for a client in Australia, in the US, in Europe, and finally they reap the benefit out of that product, whatever that is built. So that's the same thing here in this sector as well, in the technology sector. So just if you look at that, I mean, I think we are missing out on an opportunity, right? And a sector like technology, which I believe, if you know, because it has there's no resources involved, right? It's essentially your brain, your creativity, and the kind of effort that you put in to make sure that you can develop a great product. And we obviously heard a lot of stories around it, right? You know, when WhatsApp was sold to Facebook, it was only an 18-man team, right? You know, when Snap went IPO, it was a very small team, right? When some of the famous products that had some very famous acquisitions were very small teams, right? And that's the opportunity, right? You know, being able to, you know, put your intellectual property, build great products, and be able to, you know, build a lot of value in your country or overseas, right? And I think technology is such that you don't have to be in the US, you don't have to be in Europe. You can actually do it in Sri Lanka or wherever you are, right? Even you know, even in a village down south or in the north, right? So that's the opportunity that technology provides. And of course, in the context of products, you know, you get far better value for some great products that you can develop within yourselves, right? So that's really that's what I want to sort of, you know, tell the audience first. But I think it all starts with, you know, what do I develop? You know, how do I develop products that that customers want, right? And I can tell you, obviously, that's a journey, right? Just like any artist would start drawing, you know, he would want to know his audience, right? Just like that, you know, when you develop a digital product, you need to know your audience. You know, essentially build something that the people would want to buy or use. I think digital is such that even if you can find a product that people can use, that's still good enough, right? And I think that has a lot of value immediately, right? If you can get a lot of people to use it, right? And that's what WhatsApp was, right? And then I think that's what creates a lot of value. And then after that, obviously the question of monetizing later on. Yeah, so I think product engineering is now becoming a trend, and obviously a lot of folks are now getting involved in it, and obviously there's a lot of opportunities in that space. And I'm a believer that to get into product, you know, you don't have to have an engineering degree, you don't have to have a software engineering degree, right? If you have a creative mind, right, and then be able to sort of put things together, you should be able to you should be able to excel in this career, right? Now, in the context of why I'm talking about it is that for us as a country, if we were to be able to benefit out of technology, right? I think we need to be able to sort of bring out some really good product engineers that in that sector, so that they will able to sort of evolve and essentially be able to create a WhatsApp or a Facebook or a or one of those crazy ideas out of this country. And that's what makes that's what makes this career so exciting, right? I think we've come to an era that anything can be built, right? Anything today there isn't much of tech depth, if I may put it that way, right? There isn't a lot of tech depth available, right? If you can imagine and if you can really document it and put it on paper, anything can be built, right? There is nothing that cannot be built today through technology. It's about the vision, the understanding, the product, and how it can be sort of, how can that rubber touch the road, right? And then make sure that, people sort of adapt to it. And that's what really matters in digital products, right? Yeah, Tarun, go ahead.
I think you set the stage very clear. Wow, I mean, why you need the product owners, what are they expected to do, right? Now, in other words, from what it sounded to me, it's more like a mini entrepreneur who is working within the company, who has to look into all facets. More like a parent, like how a parent builds up a child. The particular product owner or the entrepreneur needs to be able to grow that product, come up with the idea, convince the company this is what we should do, and then grow that child up within the organization. Now, I personally feel from many conversations with you and with so many of the business leaders that we do have a lack of such mindset. It's not common here, but it's a very scarce thing, especially in Sri Lanka. Why do you think that such situation has arisen within our corporate sector? Is it that traditionally we are always told focus on marketing, focus on finance? Is it that one-track mind we force people to specialize in, or what's the key issue here?
Okay, so I think there are a couple of issues, right? One is so what I find in Sri Lanka, right? I think we've been unfortunate that we haven't been developing products for our own selves, right? So that's been a problem, right? We never had great product companies that were developing products for Sri Lanka, right? We've had people working for companies overseas, and that's where sort of people have not got to sort of start thinking about products, right? Now, so that's where it starts. And number two, I think I believe we have the people. I mean, because it's the product engineering. It's actually a sense of it's essentially with people with common sense, right? For example, when I hire, I look for people who has a liking for business, right? Who has a liking for some artistic stuff like singing or so maybe even art, drawing, right? The thinking behind that is they are playing for an audience. They're doing something for an audience, right? So if you were to sit down and develop a product, you will always have at the back of your head that you're doing this for a customer, right? And that's the foundation to it, right? And if you can sort of think about the customer and start developing something, I think you should be able to come up with some great products. So the second problem is really we haven't been able to demonstrate that, right? And that's where the issue is. We have the people, right? Of course, with the right kind of guidance and the right kind of training, they would be able to sort of take this up. Like I said, it's not rocket science, right? We're developing products. It's actually common sense. Being able to figure out, how do I make sure that I can wow a customer through that experience, right? And that's what it takes.
Zulfa, now when you're looking at entrepreneurs, or in other words, product owners, right? how do you think that someone can start naturally playing the role of a product owner? Let's say we have an individual who is working for a particular organization, maybe a tech sector, maybe non-tech sector. Yes, maybe this person has an idea. Now, as a CEO, what kind of initiation do you expect from your product owners? What do you want them to do as the first step?
Yeah. So, I love, I mean, for us, we want everyone to be a product owner, right? We want an organization, we have about 250 people in the organization. We want everyone to be ambassadors of our product, right? Not, I mean, obviously ambassadors meaning they need to feel for the product, right? And I think, so what we know that is when you start excelling on that, you naturally become an entrepreneur, right? I mean, if you looked around, some of the great entrepreneurs have been product owners, right? You look at some of the entrepreneurs that came out of PayPal, some of the other entrepreneurs that have come out of other large organizations have been product managers or product owners for some product in the large organization, in the parent organization. So that's where it starts, right? Then you start thinking in those directions. And then, when a great idea comes through, you really know what to do from there onwards, right? And that's just generally the start. And for example, if you take our organization, we obviously encourage entrepreneurship in the organization itself. Of course, we want everyone to make sure that to make sure that they contribute to the product development of our organization. We have about five to six products, and I think we want to make sure that everyone gets involved in the development of the product. Of course, we have product managers, product owners, and delivery managers all involved, but we want everyone to start thinking, even an engineer to start thinking of that product, so that they would always want to make sure that when that product goes into market, right, it always provides a great experience to customers.
Zulfan, now, essentially, entrepreneurs are problem solvers, right? They are people who are coming up with a solution to a particular problem, and that's where the business opportunity lies. Now, I presume that entrepreneurs also need to have that problem-solving skill, problem-solving ability. What is your general thinking in the overall Sri Lankan corporate sector? Do you see that mindset of people wanting to solve a problem? Because a lot of the time we hear the complaint that people are not taking ownership, and that ends up being a great barrier for lots of organizations to grow. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Good question. Yes, I think it's you're right. I mean, the problem do exist, right? And something that we've done in our organization is making sure that we always, obviously there's egos coming into play. There is politics that comes into play, right? When you try to work together, but we always want to make sure that we always put our customer in front of us, right? And essentially, our meetings, our discussions is about the customer, right? What do we, we are making, we make a decision, for the sake of the customer, right? And we want to make sure that is the main focus. Now, we feel that if you have customer in the center of all decision making, right, everything else becomes easy, right? So when I say everything becomes easy, we should be able to hit our targets, right? We should be able to hit our revenues, right? Because we are essentially solving that problem for the customer, right? And then of course we can also make sure that our investors are also kept happy, because all these sort of helps each other.
All right. Zulfan, now I've looked into different material, right? Especially about the different models of the different roles that an entrepreneur is expected to play within the organization. Now, my question, one thing that is very much of interest to me is that it said entrepreneurs should not only be coming up with the ideas, but they should also be good at motivating other people to adopt that idea. Because when you're an entrepreneur, I believe to your product owners, you allocate a team, you give them a team and say, run with this team and get the job done. Now, how difficult is this transition for an entrepreneur to go from somebody who was just working for the company to go on to actually running and managing a team? And does this mean that entrepreneurs need to naturally be good with people?
I think it's a bit. I think it obviously differs on the context, right? I mean, if it's a product that involves a lot of people involvement, the answer is yes, right? But if it's a product that doesn't involve a lot of involvement, right? For example, if you're trying to do something on crypto or something like that, I suppose you can just sit down. You don't need a lot of interaction taking place, but be able to sort of build something. Now, a product like us, where there's a lot of offline connection, right? We're talking about drivers, we're talking about merchants, customers. That needs you to sort of interact and be able to sort of engage with customers. Understanding their requirements. Carrying out surveys. So that connection needs to happen. But like I said, it depends on the kind of product that you are into. Right. I mean, it can be done, right? It's just that the person who's been given the challenge should know, the boundaries that he needs to be ready for, right? Is he ready for, is he capable of, talking to so many people just to get a survey going, right? So, I mean, it obviously depends, right? If I may put it that way, it depends on the product and the expectation from that person.
Zulfa, now, if you look at your organization, right, PIM, easily the leading ride-hailing app in the country, but you obviously have different ambitions. I very well remember where once you said any rupee being spent online by a Sri Lankan in Sri Lanka, you want PIM to be a part of it. And I think that's a great ambition, and we certainly hope you get there. Now, you do depend, given the industry you're in, you are taking on some of the global giants. I think it's no secret that Uber is one of your big competitors, right? In Sri Lanka, I mean, they are here, they are competing. Now, when you're taking on such global giants, how important and what kind of a contribution do you get from your entrepreneurs of the organization? What's the role that entrepreneurs play inside PIM?
Yeah, I mean, they all play a very large role. So like I said, we have product managers, but we consider everyone part of our product, right? In our organization, right? Everyone can contribute to a great experience, right? Of course, yes, we're competing with a multinational, and we've been fighting hard. But I think everyone plays a role, and I think we have a sort of we create an environment that you're part of the company, right? You're not here to do a 9-to-5 job. You're here just like a shareholder, and then that's what we want to create, right? We want everyone in the company to know that they're actually shareholders of the company itself.
Zulfa, now they say in all organizations, employees are willing to talk, but only the great companies have leaders who are actually willing to listen to what these employees are actually saying. Now, as a leader, as a young CEO and a successful CEO, how do you practice listening? How do you take the time to listen to your employees? How do you practice that?
All right. Okay. Good question. And I should have addressed this at the beginning. So one of the most important ingredients of a product manager is to be curious, right? Is to be curious. You have to have your ears, your eyes, your smells, right, open, so that you get this feedback, right? And I think that's what makes a great product manager, right? Being able to quickly understand what are people saying, so you get a lot of feedback coming through, and you have to stay very inquisitive. Why is this way? Why is that way, right? And in our journey, in this journey of PIM, I've learned a lot of things that are very surprising sometimes, right? And sometimes we wonder, why should we do it this way, right? Why can't it be done that way? Now, just to give you an idea, right? today taxi fares are upfront driven, right? If you notice, I mean, if you were to book a trip on our platform, we give you our upfront price, and in fact 90% of our trip finishes on that upfront price, right? And I think consumers have also sort of accepted it, right? And they actually like it, right? Now, those days you would get into a three-wheeler not knowing what the price is, right? Obviously, if you're on a meter, you expect the meter to run, but sometimes you would have to ask the guy, how much is it, things like that. So I mean, we've had a eureka moments, a lot of them, right? And that comes through obviously a lot of being curious about it, trying to be observant and try to understand, okay, why are we doing it this way, right? Sometimes they're so old methods of doing, it obviously come down after so many years of the same practice. Sometimes you try to, you might want to check your own self to understand why are we doing it that way. And we've had so many situations, like I said before, where we just had to, just ditch it and come up with a new way of getting that done through technology.
Zulfa, now the role of a product owner is to come up with new ideas, right? Innovation. So how do you drive, because it's very hard is because I mean people tend to be complacent with how things are. We have already innovated something, it's successful, but I mean it's a given thing. If you just stay being happy with where you are today, tomorrow somebody will come and just gobble you up. That's the harsh truth. How do you create that relentless pursuit within your team, within the entrepreneurs, say keep innovating? How do you do that?
Yeah, so Tarinder, I think it's very prevalent in this industry, right? I just want to reiterate what you mentioned. I think in an industry like this, the day you say, this product is great, that's the day. That's from that day onwards, you're going to die, right? Because it's the digital space is so dynamic. It is evolving. Right, you've got to be on the top of the game, right? And we've seen it, right? We've heard it from the Nokias to the Yahoos and a lot of other companies who sort of faded away because they never innovated, right? So that's,
I want to interrupt you there. I want to interrupt you also there. Maybe you can address this later. I think the famous words of the Nokia CEO was, "We didn't do anything wrong, but we still failed." I think those were some famous words in the press conference he had where he was fully selling off the unit to Microsoft. Yeah. We didn't do anything wrong and still we failed, and he broke into tears with that. Is it the fact that Nokia didn't even bother failing the reason for them to really go down, because they were just too happy being successful? They were too scared to fail. Do you think that mindset led to their downfall, possibly?
So I haven't done anything. I haven't done any research around Nokia, but I think obviously they didn't innovate enough, right? I mean, at one point Nokia had one of the best products, right? I mean, I can still remember their menus were so good, right? You can literally, send a message in 5 seconds if you want to, right? Because they've done that menu structure very well, but they obviously didn't evolve. Right?
Just to add into context here, there was a time the Finnish stock market was doing well just because of Nokia.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly.
And mind you, this is a company that started to as a business that was dealing with paper. So clearly, innovation led them to their success, but then they stopped innovating.
Yeah. So probably this question, the first question that you asked me probably is the reason. Maybe there wasn't anything in place for the employees to innovate beyond that, right? And I think, I mean, Nokia is an example. BlackBerry is another example, right? They really didn't evolve from the beautiful products that they did, right? Maybe complacency settled in, right? And they didn't sort of move away from that, right? So just going back to that other question, I think this is that new thing, right? I think we've seen companies evolve. I believe when I did my MBA, people thought companies would not cross 100 years, right? Now, obviously, digital, we're still young, probably the oldest company being IBM, right? Obviously, doing about 50 years already, right? Now obviously, IBM is also on its way down, essentially. But obviously, you've seen companies evolving. So this is the big test for tech companies also. Now, how do you sort of evolve and stay ahead of the pack and ensure that you're relevant to the market, right? So to go back to that question, I think obviously, in an organization like us, in a tech company, we have to evolve, right? There's going to be a lot of changes taking place in the tech space, right? I think that I've obviously lived in the PC era, right? When the PCs came out, from the Windows 3.1 to where it is today, and very fortunate enough, I could catch the mobile wave, right? In another 1 year down the road, we don't know what the new phase is going to be, right? So we're talking about metaverse today. We're talking about IoT, right? We're talking about machine learning, right? We're talking about robots, right? So I think as an organization, we better be ready for that, right? Autonomous vehicles, right? I think we need to be ready for it, right? And we need to know how we can be relevant, when that wave hits us, right? So I think that's what it is, finally, right? Of course, employees needs to be motivated, trained, and essentially kept kept relevant, right? Everyone needs to be skilled up. I need to skill myself up, right? So that I can understand the context of some of the conversations that the world is having, right? Today we are talking about NFTs, right? Cryptos and stuff like that. And I believe, as an entrepreneur, as people in entrepreneurship, and obviously to the students of MBA here, you need to know what it is, right, to stay relevant.
Zulfa, now another question coming in from our learning partners in one of our in the Middle Eastern batches that we have, someone who has been constantly participating in all our Montage events, and in fact he's even here as well, Mr. Hikam Khalid. Now this recruitment and staff turnover, especially in the tech sector, has been a major issue, right? So how do you really find the next entrepreneur within your team? Because if the worst thing in my view can be you have an entrepreneur who has started a particular new project, and halfway through is now leaving to another organization. Of course, I mean, these are natural things, but it can put that entrepreneurship project that was being done in jeopardy as well. How do you balance that very sensitive issue?
Yeah, so I think so on the topic of resources, right? This is a battle, right? When I say a battle, obviously, we are lobbying the government, the institution, the education ministry, to make sure that we have a lot more people coming out, right? I mean, my debate to a lot of these people is, the people in the tech industry are doing really well, right, in terms of salaries, and then even if you were to sort of look at some of the average salaries, it's far beyond $1,000, right? And I can tell you that if our GDP is at $3,000, what is it now? $6,000? I can't. Was it 3,000?
Around 3,000, yeah.
Yeah, 3,000. Yeah. So if it's 3,000, I suppose we need to get more tech workers out, right? So if our tech industry is very small, we only have about 100,000 people. We graduate, we have about 170,000 people passing A-levels, right? So we need to be able to sort of bring more people into the tech space, right? I think if more and more people come in, their families will do better, right? And I suppose the country will do better, right? Obviously, today, in the next 1 year, we are expecting the demand for tech workers to go up by 3x, right? When I say tech workers, I'm not just talking about engineers, but I'm talking about product engineers, the UX, the graphics, whatnot, right? So there's gonna be a super increase in demand for these resources, right? And I think that's a great opportunity for folks for the folks in Sri Lanka. I think if we can quickly skill ourselves up, I'm sure the country will benefit, right? So on the topic of, people leaving and obviously all that kind of stuff, I think,
I think
we obviously.
I think the topic is the topic is about the queues at the Canadian embassy.
Yes. So I think we obviously discourage people from leaving. I think we, as a company, we're Sri Lankan born. I think we've attracted, in fact, in our company, we've attracted a lot of people coming to come back, right? In fact, some of my leadership team have actually lived overseas and they've come back to Sri Lanka, right? Which is great. I mean, that reverse migration can happen if there's opportunities that we can create within the country, right? And I think that's doable, right? We've seen that happen in Taiwan. We have seen that happen in Thailand. We're seeing that happen in India now, right? So this is what we need to do. We need to create an economy for ourselves, encourage entrepreneurship, and most of these folks that left us will certainly come back.
Zulfa, when an entrepreneur comes to you with an idea, essentially they are asking you to bet your money on their idea, right?
Yeah.
What are you looking for in that idea? Because there might be somebody here who's thinking, look, I have a product idea. I'm going to take it to my boss. Let's hope and pray that he puts his buck behind it. But you as a CEO, from the CEO's angle, the guy who is on the other side of the table, what are you looking for in that idea before you bet your buck on it?
Yeah. So yes, let's talk about the idea first, and then let's go back to the betting on the idea, right? So I think obviously there's a lot of ideas out there, right? And I think we all have ideas, right? We all have ideas, and I want to understand the depth of that idea. What kind of research was done? Did the person do enough to understand the problem? Yeah. I would love to understand how big the problem is, right? If you're only solving for 10 people, I suppose I'm not interested. But if you're solving for a million people, I would love to understand that even better. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. I mean, if you're solving a problem for the whole world, right? I can tell you, not just me. I mean, I'm sure everyone would love to hear you out, right? So that's the kind of ideas I would love to hear. Then next is, if I'm to put my buck on it, right? I think we all have ideas, right? If I have to put a dollar in behind it, it'll be down to the person who's bringing the idea, right? Can he execute on it, right? Can he put can he be able to sort of make sure that he executes and be there? Obviously entrepreneurship is about a lot of ups and downs, right? And can he actually go through those ups and downs, right? Is he strong enough to go through those issues?
Zulfa, in terms of the current economy, right, with so much of stress being out there, I mean, let's face the reality, right? You're scared to go home because your gas cylinder might be exploding, and then people are honestly worried of catching COVID and all that. It's a stressful time here in Sri Lanka as much as it is in around the world. And do you think this is having like a negative impact? Because entrepreneurs, we both discuss, needs to be creative, and it's not the most conducive environment for people to be creative. Do you see that as a problem right now here in Sri Lanka?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, it's how you look at it, right? Do you want to look at this glass half full or half empty? It's how you look at it, right? I mean, I would like to be a lot more positive, right? I like to look at it as an opportunity. How do you turn this around? But obviously, the situation is obviously in a very bad situation. We don't know whether there'll be a power cut in the next 1 hour, or whether there'll be fuel for us to drive around tomorrow. So these are the big questions, right? I think we as people, professionals, we should also obviously take part in this and ensure that the right message goes to the rulers of this country, right? And I think we need to do our part to make sure that happens, right? So that's on one side. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think great entrepreneurs are made through recessions, right? And then I think if there is a great opportunity, it would be right now, right? You will see opportunities coming up, and when they do come, you have to make sure that you take them with both hands.
Zulfa, now today I represent PIM, and I would like to ask you, from the viewpoint of an MBA provider, what do you expect our role to be as education institutes in Sri Lanka in creating more entrepreneurs? What changes do you think we should be having in our MBA syllabus in order to do this?
All right. Okay. I was not prepared for this, but I think it's a great question, right? I just said I should have sort of thought about it. But I think
don't I mean, just to be clear, we do have an entrepreneurship module. Some of our students do an entrepreneurship project, but in general, let's say from MBA institution like ours, what do you expect? You've traveled the world, you've seen what other universities do around the world as well. What do you expect us to do so we can make your hunt for entrepreneurs a much more smoother and easier one?
Yeah. Okay. So I've seen an MBA program, right? And I don't know if it's a common thing now, but I was actually amazed. I was not a student of that MBA, but I thought it was a great way to sort of teach something very important, right? That MBA program, had an exercise that you had to climb, a mountain, right? Kilimanjaro, I think, in Africa. And they had to climb. And I thought that was a great program for an MBA, right? Because that's what it takes, right? If you want to become an entrepreneur, you should know how to get up on top of that mountain, right? And obviously that's a 7-day exercise, right? One, you will have to go with your own MBA mates, right? And be able to sort of plan yourself to get to the top of that mountain, right? I thought that was a great way to sort of, teach some of the most important things about entrepreneurship, right? So that would be a good start. But I think, see, one of the most important thing that I find is how close you become to your customer, right? And that has been so important through my career, and I'm sure this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs would tell you, is that you need to be very strong. We should be very strong very close to your customers, right? And that's, like I said, a product manager is about, being curious. So that includes you to be very close to your customers so that you understand what they want, what it feels to experience your product, right? And be able to sort of understand what needs to be done to ensure that you satisfy in the next phase of their growth as well.
All right. There's an interesting question by one of our viewers who is joining us from the UK. We love having a global audience, to be very honest. How can entrepreneurs start up in Sri Lanka when he or she cannot do global business because the government is having regulations with regard to cash transfers? And as it's a global market where you need countries like China to do parts of innovative products as well. Zulfa, how are you? What are your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I can give you a straight answer, and it's a problem for us also, right? But I think, see, well, what can I say? We've got to fight for it, right? We've got to ask, our people and say, the folks who are ruling this country saying, why can't we go to the world, right? Why can't we build from Sri Lanka to the world, right? And I think we've obviously done that in the previous industries. When it comes to digital, we need to ask those questions, right? But I think, hey, you know what? Of course, she's asking from the UK, but if there's any better place to do it, it has to be. It would only be in Sri Lanka, right? If you're a Sri Lankan, you've got families here, right? I suppose there's no better place than here. So I suppose this is where you could start, right? And obviously you can, if the question is about, why can't I, move capital to overseas countries. Of course, because of the prevailing conditions, you can't. But obviously, I also feel there is issues, right, and they need to be addressed, right. I always ask the policymakers, if there was an Elon Musk today, will he be able to build what he's building today in Sri Lanka? So that's, I suppose, that's the kind of answers that the policymakers will have to answer.
Okay, there's a question from Hikam Khalid. Can you be a successful entrepreneur if the political environment is unsupportive? What is your strategy to, because you built, I think without being too controversial, Zulfa, I think we can all agree that over the last few decades, the political leaderships, the different political leaderships that we have had in this country haven't been ideal. Maybe they've tried the best they could, but it's not been at a level where a country deserves. I think that we are not referring to just one government. I think we can put that blame, maybe going back even 70 years. I think we can put that blame to a certain extent. So, but you built a very successful company, an extremely successful company, despite there being multiple different, political regimes in the country. Well, how did you do this? I think that's a question he comes also.
So the simple answer is don't expect anything, right? And I think, when I grew up, obviously, talking to people and all that, some people say it's important to have an affiliation to a political party or to a politician. I think that's the biggest mistake, right? A politician out there is not interested in an entrepreneur, right? He's obviously interested in his voter base, right? And he obviously wants you to help him build his voter base, right? He wouldn't care a shit about your company, right? And I've heard that, and I've seen it, and I've seen it. I've learned not to bother about that, right? I think it's come to that situation that obviously, and if you look at the context of our government, the right doesn't know what the left is doing, and it's all broken, right? But I think as part of entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, I think we should not lean into politicians or political parties. It doesn't help us at all, right? So we need to sort of hold our head and sort of move ahead. I think I think the less the government helps us, the better it is, because I think we can obviously build our own thing on our own. And I think, this is true even in India, right? Even the private sector says, no, government, just keep away. We'll do our thing, and we should be able to come out of this on our own. And I think that's been something that I've been doing. I've been fortunate enough. I've got a board that is very wise. They've been advising me on how I need to sort of navigate in these stages, right? And it has helped me. And I think we've kept away from governments and politicians throughout this growth.
Zulfa, in our last 10 minutes, I first want to throw a question at you and then hopefully open up the forum and ask you to give the closing remarks as well. Now, when you started PIM, you probably were, number one, a lot more younger than now, and at the same time, you would have been that startup guy with a new idea, crazy about it, 24/7, 365 innovator, entrepreneur. Today, you have a board to answer to, you have a board to listen to, you have investors to convince. You have to, I'm pretty sure you have to deal with a lot more regulators and all that today. Despite all that, how do you still keep that entrepreneur, or rather, I think you yourself is an entrepreneur for your own company. How, as a CEO, despite all those duties, complicated duties, despite all that, how do you still keep that entrepreneur or the entrepreneur within you alive?
Yeah, so I think, so when you come to a certain stage, right, it's part of your, part of your life, right? And I've, obviously been in this trade, been an entrepreneur for quite a long time, it just runs in my senses, right? And I obviously stay very inquisitive. I try to understand what's happening with our customers. Obviously engage with every customer I could, right? Every opportunity I have, I make sure that I use that to my advantage, right? So I think that's what keeps me going, right? So to answer that whole question about the board and all that, I think I've been fortunate enough to have a great team around me, right? So that I can always lean on them to help me out in some of the most challenging times, right? I think one other thing that I thought I should point out to some of the folks here in the webinar is that you should never be afraid to hire anyone better than you, right? And I think that has I have folks that are better than me. I can tell you some of the folks that we have in our company. We obviously hire the best talent out there, right? I don't have a degree to myself, but I make sure that I always have some of the best brains in the country, and I want to make sure that we are ahead of the curve, right? When we build things, or when we develop technologies, we use some of the best technologies out there. We never cut corners to work on our products. We want to make sure that we are the best. I hope that answers that first question.
Absolutely. Zulfa, so in our last 5 minutes, I would like you to share your thoughts with us on, especially when these MBA students, if they are to transition from being just a normal manager or an executive to an entrepreneur. I mean, how do you suggest they do that? Number one. Number two, the forum is also open for your thoughts. You are very passionate about Sri Lankans being in Sri Lanka, doing business in Sri Lanka, and taking Sri Lankan businesses to the world. Do inspire us. The forum is yours, both the crowd we have in Zoom and also the bigger crowd whom we have via Facebook.
Yeah, so I think to answer your first question, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur and then move into an entrepreneur, right? I suppose you just have to join PIM, right? Apply to PIM, and we would love to see how we can get you in, right? So that's probably the starting point, right? But I think if you can't get in, right, another way to start is essentially look at your own organization and see, what can I do here to provide your customers a better experience, right? It could be, at the call center, it could be in the front desk, right? It's a passion to serve, right? It starts from there, and then when you know your customers better, you'll be able to sort of look at what more can I do, right? And I think that's where it sort of starts, right? So coming to the second question, I think of course I've been very passionate. I grew up in this country, very fortunate. I came from Gaul, right? That's where my parents were. Obviously, my father had to go overseas for work, and I had the fortunate this thing to go with him wherever he went. And then when we came back, we had to sort of build our lives here. So seeing that, done that, and I think one of the things I did is get into entrepreneurship very early, right? I can tell you, people I know told me, hey, why are you trying to get into entrepreneurship? When you could have just got into a job, right? Do a job. I mean, the understanding was do a job, get to your 50s and then start business, right? I mean, that was the phase, right? That time, right? When I started, there was no hype around startups, right? There was just you and yourself, right? There was no support. There wasn't any big discussions around that, right? So when I started, obviously, just to do it on your own, right? Obviously, a lot of courage, right? It's like jumping off a cliff, right? And being able to sort of, do it. I think there isn't a better time to be part of a startup than these days, right? Because this is just a fantastic opportunity. Obviously, if you're in digital, it just makes it a lot more easier, right? You understand what's happening around the world, right? And I think we need to create an environment that entrepreneurs learn from each other, right? And I think that's important for the country, for entrepreneurship as a whole, right? Gone are the days that you have an idea, you keep it under your pillow till you decide to execute on it. But today, ideas are flowing, right? People are just talking about ideas, and it's all down to the person who can execute it, right? And I think PIM does a great job, obviously, training them, but I've seen very little people jump in off the cliff, right? And I think we would love to see more students from PIM doing that. And I think Sri Lanka today, if we were to evolve, we need more entrepreneurs, right? We need very little politicians, right? We actually need more entrepreneurs, and we need to have a voice out there for entrepreneurship, right? And build a strong private sector, right? That can sort of, I'm a believer that we can only come out of this problem that we are in today through entrepreneurship and businesses, right? The private sector, they are the ones who can take us out, because the public sector, I mean, has not done a great job, right? Obviously, public sector is good at certain areas. They can't run enterprises, right? We've done this. I mean, we've seen this around the world. It's not happening. It's not happening the way it should. I think enterprises should be left for private sector to run. Government should just set the rules up for us to run the enterprises, right? And I don't think government should run enterprises. I think it's the worst decision. I mean, it's the wrong thing to do, and we all know that they're not driven very efficiently. And if they are turned into private sectors, I'm sure a lot of us will not have power cuts and gas cylinder bursting off or whatnot, right? So I suppose I think that the next 20 years or the next 10 years is going to be very interesting, right? The world is going to change, right? Of course, I spoke about the world of automation, the digitization that's going to take place, and it's going to be very exciting, right? So the sooner you get in, the sooner you would see results coming out. So with those words, I hope I did justice to the audience. I'm very happy to be here, and obviously being able to sort of talk about my journey, and of course about product management as a whole. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you, Daridam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey Sulfa, founder, CEO of PIM, for allocating your valuable time. And unfortunately, even though our other panelists was unable to join us, you still took the brunt of the entire webinar. I mean, that's the Sulfa I know, and that just goes on to show your ability to handle the capacity. 1 hour of an enthralling discussion. I'm sure all participants found the value in what we have to share, and I only hope that the people will be inspired to become entrepreneurs, and grow entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka, and with that take the economy to the next level as well. Keep doing the good work you do, and I sincerely hope that Pick Me will continue to pick me, the others, and the entire Sri Lanka to next level in these digital ecosystems today. Thank you very much for joining us, Zulfa, and wish you a good night and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode of PIM Monthly Montage. I'm Tharanga Sekara, Senior Lecturer of the Postgraduate Institute of Management. It was an absolute pleasure bringing you this discussion with the exciting entrepreneur, dynamic, successful. Well, the adjective list can go on. And thank you for joining us. And we will see you in the last week of February as well with yet another episode of PIM Monthly Montage. Have a good night and a good month ahead.